Hi, it's Penny here, and in this video I wanted to talk about my reading goals for the year of 2024. And to be honest, this year I've structured the list kind of weird, like I have the list in front of me down here, and it's all like indented, a bullet list with like lots of indents. I don't know, it's confusing. Let's just talk through it. So my first goal is the simple one, the one about how many books I want to read. I always just set this to 100 books. And then I have kind of like a stretch goal of 150 books. Basically, 100 books a year is really quite doable for me. It's usually one physical book and one audiobook every week. But usually I can also fit in a few extras along the way, either shorter books or just whatever, often some graphic novels as well. So really 150 is quite doable. And recently 150 is what I've been doing. So 100 books, but actually 150. Yep, we're making things confusing already. Okay, then the second point on my list is about some different lists that I want to work through. Firstly would be my TBR 0 list. So for the last few years I've been working on TBR 0 and now I'm at 4 books. I'm actually hoping to read these over the next 2 or 3 months. I know that I often read 10 books in a month, and so getting through 4 books seems like it shouldn't be that hard, but I'm also like just trying to read so many other books, which we'll talk about next. So probably I'll read 2 of these in February and 2 of these in March. That's the current plan. Then I'll have no books on my TBR though, and then I have no idea what to do with my life, because we are hoping to move this year. We still don't know when that might be, but kind of leading up to that, I've been trying not to buy any books and doing pretty well at it. Like all of these I have obtained in the last 6 months, but 4 books is not very many. And like, I think I spent maximum $5 for all of these books, like combined. Anyway, this is not a video about my spending habits or my book buying habits. Basically what I'm saying is I think I'll be at TBR 0 this year. Will I be at TBR 0 by the end of the year? Who really knows, but at some point during the year, I'm pretty sure I'll get TBR 0. That's the goal. And then I think at the end of the year, I just want to have read any books that I've picked up recently. If they've just been picked up and I haven't gotten to them yet, it's not the end of the world. I guess we're just going to see. Once I get to TBR 0, we'll work out what works in the long run. Oh, and I've just remembered actually for each of these goals I want to talk about like not only like what is my measure of success for each goal, but also like what is my tactic, like how am I going to make sure that I hit this goal. So for TBR 0, as I said, I've already got a plan for when I'm going to pick up these books, but basically whenever I have books on my TBR, when I'm making my TBR for the month, I will use my TBR machine website to pick books off the pile and probably pick some other books as well to read. But basically I already have an approach where every month I make sure I'm taking at least some books off my TBR, so I think we'll be okay with that one. Then the next list that I have to work on is series 0. So that means basically I want to have caught up on every series that I can catch up on. There's a lot of series where I'm just waiting for new books to be released, and that's fine. I'm happy to have as many of those. It doesn't matter, but I would like for where I could have caught up on series or where I could have completed a series, that's where I want to be. And basically I'm not letting myself start any new series until I catch up on all of them. I did say that for 2023 too, and there were a few series that I started, but generally I try to keep to that rule. So I think I talked about this a little bit in my 2023 goal reflection video a couple of days ago, but basically to get to series 0 at the moment, there's just 13 series that I need to work on. Of those, 9 of them only require me to read 1 book. So if I read 9 books, I'd have finished all of those. And most of those are also like brand new releases. So I'm mainly just waiting for my library to get them to me, and some of them my library has got to me and I'm currently in the process of reading them. So like I'm not really worried about those 9. I'll probably get to them very soon and then those will be done. The only one that's really a problem is Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians. That one I pretty much need to read the whole series because I need to reread the first one. And it's possible once I get into that series, actually, since it's one of Brandon Sanderson's more silly ones, that I might decide to DNF the series instead. We'll see. My plan is to basically put a week aside for that one. So if we're talking about tactics, I've already basically scheduled or at least got a hold at the library for all those ones where I just have to read 1 book. I'm going to put a week aside for Alcatraz at some point whenever I have the time, hopefully in the first 3 months of the year. Then I also have The Promised Neverland, which is a 20-book manga series that I accidentally started. That one I'm up to book 6 at the moment, and mainly I'm just reading them as quickly as my library can get them to me, and like they're manga, they're pretty quick reads, so that's not too much of a concern. And then the only other 2 series that I have is The First Law World, which I should finish this year if I follow along with Becca and the Books' read along, so that shouldn't be a problem. And then also the Stormlight Archives. I did start last year a Cosmere reread, and I think if I don't finish it by the end of the year, I should be very close to finishing it by the end of the year. And then of course, any new books and series that are released through the year, I'll try and get to those as soon as possible. And as well, anytime I do start a new series, I just want to go into it with a plan for how I'm going to keep up with that series. So like if it's a series that's completed, I should be thinking I'm going to read these books over the next however many months and I'm going to finish the series. Or I should be thinking, okay, all the books aren't released yet, but I'll read this far and then I'll be able to keep reading one a year or however often it's going to be released. I don't know. I'm a little bit worried I'm going to end up with too many series where new releases are coming out every year and I can't keep up with new releases, but for now I think it's okay. So then as well, kind of connected is my 2024 anticipated releases list. A lot of these are books and series, so that does connect in with the series list. But a few of the books that I put on that list, which I made a few weeks back, a few of those are not series, or they're new series or whatever. Are any of them new series? Yes, I think they are. But if it's the first book, I read it and then immediately I'm caught up. See, so that's okay. But also I already kind of have on my Miro board where I do all my reading planning, I have all the books from that list on the board in places around about where I'll need to pick them up. The only thing that really holds me off ever from completing those new releases lists that I make is that most new releases, I don't buy a lot of books, especially if I don't know if I like them yet, unless it's like a super favorite author or something. So generally I'm trying to get these new releases from the library, especially in New Zealand. I don't know what it's like in other countries, but it takes a while for our libraries to actually get stock of these books. Like I can often see they've ordered copies and then it takes like a month or two for them to finally show up. So that does mean I'm often a little bit behind on new releases, but like I read them as soon as I can get my hands on them. I just can't get my hands on them for a while, because even if my library does get them pretty quickly, there's also the question of where did I manage to get in the hold queue, because if it's a very popular new release, the hold queues can get really long, really quick. So I just have to be patient with that, really. And I kind of think like this year, I'm finishing off my 2023 releases during the first quarter. So as long as I'm kind of finished those 2024 releases within the first quarter of 2025, can you believe that next year it's going to be 2025? As long as I'm finished them within the first quarter, like that's fine. I still feel like caught up enough. So to be honest, that's probably enough lists of books to add to my goals, but I'm going to add one more because I am ridiculous sometimes. So lately I tried tidying up my Goodreads want to read list, and there is, how many books? Let me check. I think it's changed a little bit. Currently, there's 129 books on my Goodreads want to read list. I kind of want to get to Goodreads want to read 0. That's not a thing that anyone does. And like, I don't actually want that. Like, imagine if you'd read every book that you wanted to read. Like, that would be depressing because then there'd be nothing else left to read. But also, like, it's 100% impossible. But still, there is a lot of books on that list that I added ages ago and I'm just never getting to them. So I want to really focus on getting through that list and like reviewing that list regularly to make sure I'm taking off things that I'm no longer interested in. And like maybe, because you can sort by date added, so maybe I just want to have read everything that I've added beyond 1 year. Basically, I'm just trying to get it so that whenever I'm excited about a book, I read it soon after that and we have a nice flow of books rather than like just building up a bigger and bigger list of books I want to read. And I also want to focus on only putting books on that list if I'm really excited about them. So I used to just put anything I heard about that sounded vaguely good on that list, but I just want it to be books that I'm really excited about so that then I can get to those books that I'm really excited about quite soon. So really at the moment, actually I just remembered from my notes, I'm not actually going to get to want to read 0. I just, at the moment, want to try and get it under 100 books. That's what I wrote down. And I think I could do it, right? That only means taking 29 books off the list. We could do that. And really, I think in terms of tactics, the main way I will be doing that is every time, again, while I'm doing my monthly TBRs, if I have a gap and I can't fill it with a book from my physical TBR and I don't have series already filling all the slots or like library book holds already filling all the slots, then I will make an effort to pick some books off my want to read list. So I guess we'll just see how that one goes this year. Okay, now we're up to my third part of my goals. This part is really about enjoying the books that I read. So in 2023, I actually met most of my reading goals. But when I look back on the year, there were some really good books that I read, but overall I just don't feel like I loved enough of the books that I read. It doesn't feel like it was a good reading year necessarily, and I really want to make 2024 feel like a good reading year. So while I'm probably going to spend most of the first quarter finishing off my 2023 goals and like doing the TBR 0 and Series 0 and catching up on new releases, all that kind of stuff, but beyond that, whenever I'm picking up new books or when I starting some new series, I want to really be picking up ones that I think I'm going to love. And when I did my reading stats video the other day, I did kind of come up with a ratings distribution goal. So my idea was that I would like to have less than 5% 1 and 2 stars, because I really think 1 and 2 star books that I'm reading are a waste of my time. But also when I went through those books, which I actually talked about every single one of those in my worst books video, and so many of those I knew going into them that there was a good chance I wasn't going to like them, so I shouldn't have picked them up. So I want to have less than 5% 1 and 2 stars. Like, it's okay sometimes to take a risk, but like, let's make most of my books not that, because there are enough books out there that I'm excited about that we shouldn't be having that. Then I want to have about 25% 3 stars. So these are books where they're okay books, they're not bad, but they're not books that I really loved. And they're not necessarily a waste of time, but if you spend too much time reading 3-star books, then you don't get that good reading year feeling. And then I want to have like 70% 4 and 5-star books. So those are books that I thought were really great or that I really, really loved. Is 70% doable? I don't know, but I have a list here of things that I think I can do to try and head that way. Firstly, I've written down 75% adult novels, even though, again, in my stats video, I realized I don't have the evidence to support the idea that adult books get higher ratings from me. I do find, anecdotally, that I enjoy adult books more. They're just more suited to me because I'm an adult. In my stats video, it did say that I gave young adult and middle grade books a higher rating, but I think that's just because when I do pick up a YA or a middle grade book, it's usually because I have a good reason for picking that up and it's a book that I am excited about. So I want to pick up more adult books, but like the ones that I'm excited about. As well, last year I think I made a video where I read all the books that I had on my series shelf. So actually, this is where I admit that my concept of TBR 0 is a little bit of a lie. I actually had a whole nother shelf that was like books from series that I hadn't started yet, but I didn't want to count them in my TBR 0 goal because that would have ruined my series 0 goal. So I've put them aside as a whole separate thing, and then I did a try a chapter video where I read the first chapter of all of those and prioritized and DNF'd a whole lot, which was great. And so there were 6 priority series that I got out of that video, and I want to try and read those series this year. Like, I am so excited for all of those books that they have to be great. They have to be great. I'm sure I'll get some 5 stars from those series. So I'm going to pick those up. As well, that try a chapter video was so successful in terms of me finding books that I was super excited about. So I want to do more of those. So when I have lists of books that I'm not sure about, and maybe I can use this to get my Goodreads want to read list down. When I have lists of books that I'm not sure about, I want to do more try a chapter type things where I can discover, are there some that I'm like, oh, I don't think this is for me, like right from the first chapter, or ones where I like discover straight away that I just want to keep reading it and I'm like so excited to get into them. Those ones that I'm excited for, those are the ones I want to try and like track down. And I think from the other video I did, I just found that try a chapter is so much more successful for doing that compared to like reading synopsises and just whatever other approach. As well, I find try a chapter is a little bit of an easier way for me in terms of DNFing things, because I can try a chapter and like DNF it without feeling like I'm ruining all my plans. And I did say as well in a previous video, I forget where I came up with this idea, but the idea was that any 1 and 2 stars, I should really be DNFing them. Like, I should know before I get to the end that that's what's going to happen, and I should DNF things. I did see Joshana made a video about her DNFs recently, and she said, you know, if you're curious about the plot, you can always just look it up. And I do know with the Outlander series, I hated that first book, but I read the whole thing, and then I really wanted to know what happened in the rest of the series, so I just looked it up on Wikipedia. And also, Wheel of Time, I very successfully read the whole middle of the series by just reading the plot summaries online. So like, Curiosity about the plot is not enough of a reason to push through a book. I just need to get much better at DNFing things if I think they're going to be 1 or 2 stars. And hopefully if I start doing try a chapter, we won't even consider reading those books. Then the last thing I've written down on my notes here for tactics to make sure I love the books I read in 2024 is not to pick up any memoirs. The only non-fiction books that I picked up in 2023 was 3 memoirs, and I didn't rate any of them very highly. They pulled down my average rating. Like, my average rating for non-fiction books was the lowest of any other genre. So we're just making a blanket rule, no memoirs. I just don't really like them. And there are other non-fiction books I would much prefer to be picking up. Okay, then the last section on my reading goals list is stats. So there's just a couple of random things that came up in my stats video that I do want to try and achieve. Do I have tactics for these? Not really. Well, maybe. Firstly, this is a goal that I've had for a while, and that is to have less than 70% white or European authors for the books that I've read. I got 71% last year, and I think I can probably do it in 2024. I have been trying basically to just seed a lot of the TBRs that I'm creating with authors of color, and so I think that helps. And just generally, I always call it just building a diversity pipeline. As well, I think anytime I do like a try a chapter type thing, I'll try and make sure that I am providing those seeds in there for diversity. And then I think from there we can just trust that the end result will be more diverse reading. So we'll see. I know that last year I did try to build the diversity pipeline, so we'll see whether this year we actually get the results of that work. And then the other stat is that I want to read more than 10% sci-fi. So last year I only read 9%. I've forgotten the exact percent, but definitely not enough sci-fi. Like a lot of fantasy, very little sci-fi. But I like fantasy and sci-fi. And I know there's a lot of sci-fi out there that I could really love. So I want to read some of it. And I think really all I need to do is start putting together a list of sci-fis that I'm excited about, and then that'll easily happen. In fact, I know I already have a bunch of sci-fis on my Goodreads want to read list. There's at least some on my 2024 new releases list. There's some in my priority series list. Like, I've already started working towards this goal. And maybe when it comes to the new series that I want to start beyond my priority series, I'll try and start with some sci-fi books. I think that's the plan. So that is my very long and convoluted reading goals for 2024. Let me know if you've got any feedback or thoughts about them, and let me know what your reading goals are for the year of 2024. And do subscribe if you'd like to see more of my bookish videos. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.